Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today, I'll be talking to Anthony. Anthony is someone who's been involved with teaching English in China for some time. He went on our program initially in 2014 and 15 when he worked in Beijing. And when he returned, he basically became like a very integral part of teaching English in China right away. He's done, every orientation day we've run. He's done promotional events for us. I've seen him in action. He's a fantastic teacher. And sort of in the course of, being involved with us, talking about his experiences in China, he kind of got the bug and he went back to China. He's now in Shanghai. So, Anthony's also taught in the UK. So today we'll just be talking to him about sort of various aspects. There's a couple of areas we'd like to focus on. One of them is sort of the differences between Shanghai and Beijing as places to work and live, and then also how teaching in China compares to teaching in the UK. And after that, we'll see kind of what other questions come up. So if you have any questions for Anthony or myself, put them in the comment section or the live chat, and we'll get to them. But first of all, welcome to Anthony.
Hello there. Nice to see you.
How are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, really, really good. Always nice to talk to you. And like I mentioned, you obviously have been so involved with teaching English in China. You know so much about like working in different cities. So you're in Shanghai now. You were previously in Beijing. So could you tell us a bit more about sort of the differences between those cities and how you've enjoyed it?
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, they are completely different cities, and as you said, I first started in Beijing about 4 years ago now, and I decided that I wanted to go to the city because I'm quite a city person. I really love the city, and the initial idea was to maybe go to Beijing because it was the capital city, and also because it was sort of intriguing the Chinese culture, and I felt like I could get that more from Beijing. And I had an absolutely great time, learned so much about the culture there. And then, a few years down the line, I decided I want to go back to China, and I decided to go to Shanghai because I had friends here, and also I wanted to experience a different city. And Shanghai seemed like the next step. As being a city person myself, and they are completely different. You get the Shanghai is a lot more sort of, you get the Western expat style, also very Chinese, but still it's a lot the expat kind of like Western styles sort of stare you in the face. Whereas Beijing, you do get that, but not as much. So you can learn a lot more in Beijing about maybe the Chinese culture and the history and things like that. So two completely different cities, which makes it really interesting to be in both.
Absolutely. So you mentioned sort of cultural activities in Beijing. So can you give us an idea sort of on a weekend or a long weekend, like what sort of cultural activities or cultural places did you go to in Beijing?
Yeah, definitely. I always say this to people that Beijing, I felt like always had something to do every weekend, and we had something planned every weekend. And the cultural things tend to be things like, as I said, history, like the temples, like you get the Qing dynasties, and from thousands of years ago, which I guess you don't really get back home. Yes, you get thousands, but I'm talking thousands, like really, really long histories. So you get these absolutely incredible old style buildings that are very unique, and so therefore going to parks that were created for the emperors. They are beautiful, and also I think in the different seasons as well, they are so different. Like, for example, in the parks in the summer it's completely bright, it's beautiful, but in the winter the lakes freeze over, so you can actually sort of ski around it and things, which is it gives it a totally different vibe. And also like the Great Wall, that is an incredible thing to see, one of the wonders of the world. And also there's different parts of the wall as well, some more historical than others, so going to different parts can take up your weekends really. And the things like hutongs as well, really old style housing where you can have a walk through and see different shops. So for Beijing, there's a lot of history which you can go and see. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting actually what you said about the seasons, because I remember that famous Instagram picture of yours where you're sort of on the lake. the frozen lake in Beijing. So, so what about Shanghai then? Now we've talked a little bit about weekends and what you do in your spare time. So what about Shanghai? How does it sort of a normal weekend look like for you in Shanghai?
Yeah, Shanghai. As I said, I've got quite a lot of friends here, which is quite lucky, and I feel like it's easy, really easy to make friends in Shanghai. So therefore, we tend to do a lot of things like just simple things like going to the cinema or maybe going out for drinks on a weekend. You know, Shanghai is really big on brunch, so quite often on a weekend we'll go and have brunches, and which is. I mean, we do have brunch in the UK, but it's not the same as like here. It's really a big thing. And then we might do the odd sort of tourist attraction here and there. So like, for example, you could go up the top of the towers, or you can go to, like, there's a propaganda museum with like posters and things like that. So we'll do the odd thing like that, but quite a lot of times we do a lot of activities like bowling and cinemas and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a bit more of an independent lifestyle, I think.
Okay. Interesting. So you mentioned obviously the expat community and knowing people, you know, from our sort of network. So what was that like in Beijing in terms of fellow expats that you met there?
So to be honest, I think most of the expats I met in Beijing were from this program, Teach English in China, and we really bonded over the training camps, and they became my best friends. They're still my best friends now. Still see them a lot. So that side of the expats, I found that we would meet up regularly. But actually, most of my friends in Beijing were probably Chinese, actually, especially my colleagues. Like my best friend was my best friend work colleague. We used to do activities all the time, so I had a real mix of friendships in Beijing.
Okay. So would you say, so by the sounds of it, so would you say your experience in Beijing was a bit more sort of authentically Chinese than in Shanghai?
Yes, definitely. And that's not to say that Shanghai doesn't have the Chinese side of it, because Shanghai is still fantastic for the Chinese side of things as well. But I think definitely, like the way I lived as well, the suburbs of Beijing, there didn't see many foreigners or anything like that. So even being a part of that was a lot more prominent than here. Whereas here, my students have seen Westerners before. It's not a big issue. It's not a problem. It's just the totally same, and they understand how like my lessons would work. So which in a way is a lot better because they don't have to adapt as much. But then it's really different. Really different.
Okay, yeah, it is interesting. And on this sort of same note, I mean, I do quite a lot of interviews with people, and then they maybe ask me, you know, I'm interested in going to Shanghai, but I wouldn't want to feel like, you know, I'm living in London or something like that. I would want to still feel like it's China. So do you feel like you could still have that sort of that authentic Chinese experience in Shanghai still?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's I think it's sometimes I forget that I get so used. I've been here in China for like 2+ years, and I get so used to the normalization of it that everything feels really normal. But actually, if I take a step back and remember when I first came to Shanghai, it was very like, wow, like it's really in your face because the big tall buildings and stuff, and it gives you that. It gives you that New York style where you're just incredibly amazed by it. And then when you get through the sort of the streets and things like that, yes, you do see Western restaurants staring at you in the face. That does happen, but I think it's very 50-50 in that. If you look around, there is plenty of Chinese streets, Chinese restaurants, Chinese stuff, and it depends on where you go and where you look. And so it's very, I'd like to say it's very 50-50. You're gonna get the comforts of home as well as the Chinese experience, but there's plenty of people here who come to Shanghai who don't do the Western side of stuff. They very much wean their way around the Chinese restaurants and or Chinese tourist attractions. So it just depends on what you want, really. But as a whole, it's 50-50, I think, in a nutshell.
Okay, sounds good. So in terms of Shanghai, there's another aspect that people ask about, and that's of course the housing. Because on our program, in every city, you get housing provided, from day one. Shanghai is a little bit different. So if you could talk a little bit about how that works.
Yeah, of course. Now for Shanghai, you get a lot of flexibility in choosing where you want to live, and that can be such a great thing, where you will get paid more, but you will have to pay your rent. Beijing or other cities as well, you don't necessarily have to pay your rent. The school does it, but you do get paid less. So you get a housing allowance, let's say, and as I said, the great thing is the flexibility. So I chose to live a lot more central, and my school's a bit on the outside. So I have about an hour commute, which is fine. An hour commute is really, it's not bad at all. And so that gives me the flexibility of being able to be in the center, essentially. Whereas Beijing, you might not necessarily have a choice. The school will probably just tell you this is where you're staying. And it's likely to be close at the school. So if your school's in the suburbs, you are likely going to be staying in the suburbs, which again, it can be a bad thing, but it could also be a very good thing in that you get that unique China experience as well.
Exactly.
Really often.
So I think in terms of Shanghai, what people maybe also wonder about, so specifically the support that the school offers you in terms of finding the apartment. So did you got someone to help you with that, right?
Yeah, it was really easy, like, because I'd done the Beijing experience, and then I used to hear of everyone getting their apartments, and I always used to think, how did you do it? Like, I don't know how did you do it? And then when I put myself in that situation of doing it, it was just so easy. So I arrived in Beijing. Sorry, not Shanghai. Sorry, not Beijing. I arrived in Shanghai, and they literally just said, right, come this way, do this, do that, set up my bank account, set up everything. I didn't really have to do much. I just had to follow. And then they were like, this is Annie, this is your coordinator. And Annie she was lovely, absolutely really nice. We're still friends now. And she just said, right, where do you want to live? Do you want to live close to the school? Do you want to live close to the center? I said, well, I'd like to live close to the center. She says, right, okay, let's go. And that was it. It was okay. So we went, and she just took me to apartments. I didn't even have to look myself. And we walked in about 5 or 6. And again, I turned down, I said 5 or 6 of them. Some of which were quite interesting, let's say. Some of which were fine. And then I found this one, and this one was just perfect location, perfect for the subway, perfect. And just said yes. And then Annie did all the work, and I just signed the contract, and that was it. I had a house. And it happened within a day or two. I think two days. Yeah. 2 days, and I had a place. And they put you up in a hotel while it's happening. So yes, exactly. It was easy.
Okay, good. Well, I mean, in terms of Beijing and Shanghai then, so we're starting our kind of allocation process in, well, I think 2-3 weeks time, our candidates will get the chance to kind of pick a city. And I think some of them will kind of be sort of torn between Shanghai and Beijing. So in terms of your experiences, what's your sort of final verdict on that?
I mean, I can only speak from personal experience, but I would say it's really tough. I would say for me, if I do it on a little visual, I would say Beijing's probably my old favorite, but I think Shanghai's just there for me personally. But I think the only reason that is because it was my first time. And if you spoke to someone who lived in Shanghai first and then said Beijing, they would say Shanghai, no doubt about it, at all. So it's a torn one, but I think for me personally, because of the Chinese culture, Beijing.
Okay, good stuff. So I mean, the sort of the next topic I want to talk about is obviously the fact that you had some teaching experiences back in the UK as well. Yeah. So how do the two compare? Teaching in China compared to teaching in the UK?
Yeah, completely different. and I was surprised at how different it is. The I think with China, you have a lot more. You have sort of a lot of lessons, but maybe you teach that lesson 6, 7, 8, 9 times. Like you just repeat it, and therefore you're only doing sort of 1 or 2 lesson plans, which is great because you have to do as many lesson plans, but it can be very repetitive. In the UK, you're doing 26 different lessons, so that's 26 lesson plans. So therefore, the UK side of it, it is a lot more work, and you've got to do your marking every day, things like that. So therefore, in China, you don't have that pressure to do that, to have to mark books or to be observed in a really strict way. So therefore, China's a great stepping stone sort of to teaching in the UK, I think. But I think, yeah, like China's going to give you that sort of feeling of whether you want to do teaching as a career or whether you just want to do it for a few years. Yeah, I think that's for now. I think that's the best way to say it.
So your plan at the moment is to stay in China for at least another year, right?
Yeah, at least another year, just to really make the most of it, to really kind of make sure I haven't missed a thing. That's why.
Yeah, good stuff. So finally, in terms of this program, I think there might be people watching this today, or people who have seen your YouTube channel or seen videos on our YouTube channel as well, and kind of just interested in doing it, but not quite sure if it's for them. What would you say? What's your advice in terms of making a final decision?
I think if you're a person who's sort of looking at it, who keeps coming back to it, then that shows interest. That shows that you're going to get on board with it and you're going to enjoy it. Because some people are very much, they'll look at it and go, no, that's it. And that's it. They move on with their lives and don't think about it. But if you're that person, if you're watching this, if you're coming back and if you're reading up on it, it suggests that you're interested and therefore it's worth coming. And it's going to give you a completely new outlook on life, and it's going to give you so much. Like, I can't even don't know where to start with how much it's been the best experience ever. But like, I have a completely incredible array of stories to tell, and I can only thank this program for it, really. It's I can't really put it into words, to be honest, of how like I've done all sorts. I've recorded for the Samsung Watch. I've went viral in China on these videos. I got recognized in the street, and like that would never happen back home at all. But here it does.
Yeah, I was meant to ask you about that, actually. How is that going? Is that viral thing? Is that still going on? And are you still getting recognized a lot?
Yeah, I just found out that one of my other videos went viral yesterday. Wow. The one of me and Heath talking. So it's a really strange concept to be in. It's really strange because especially the foreign expats. I got recognized on the subway last week. It was really strange, very strange. So yeah, but that's just really that only happens here. That only happens here.
So maybe finally, like, what's the you've done a lot in China. Obviously, you've experienced a lot of different things. So what's the thing that's still on your to-do list in terms of China, or sort of maybe for next year, the coming months? What's the one thing you still want to do in China?
Yeah, I mean, I'm currently doing my Chinese lessons at the moment, which I'm really getting into. So I really want to try and pass my HSK test very soon. So I'm really working on my Mandarin at the moment. So that's one of the achievements that I want to do. And I'm starting to really practice it. I'm starting to be able to have conversations, which is becoming a lot more better. And also, in terms of travel, there's a few cities I still want to go to, like Guangzhou, Guilin. I still haven't done Hangzhou and Suzhou yet, so we're going to do that, I think, in the next few weeks. And yeah, I think that's about it, really. So for now, but yeah, I've done quite a lot of cities so far. So there's still many more. China's very big.
Well, great to talk to you. Really appreciate it as always. And you know, thank you for everything you've done. You know, in terms of teaching English in China, so good to have you involved.
Yeah,
So
no problem.
if you've got any questions for Anthony, you know, leave them in the description, rather leave them in the comment section, and we'll get back to them. I think we'll probably do one of these a bit later on again with Anthony in a couple of months' time. So for now, if you watch this video today and you are sort of thinking about it, you know, get in touch. You know, we'll have our information in the description of this video. We've got lots of options. This is the perfect time of year to consider going to China. August is the time when state schools have their big intake for new teachers. So our state school program has, you know, options in about 20 to 25 different cities, including the ones we talked about with Anthony, Shanghai, Beijing. Many others, you know, including, you know, places like Harbin in the north, the south, Fuzhou, Guangzhou, Chongqing, Wuhan, where I taught, all sorts of places. We've also got all sorts of age groups. So we've got, you know, kindergarten, primary school, high school, university, you name it. We've also got our so that state school program comes with 2 weeks of training in China that you do in August. So it's a really good sort of way to ease yourself into it, get training, go with lots of other people in the same boat. That's how Anthony initially went in 2014, went to Beijing. So that's an option. Alternatively, we also have got a private school program where you teach at a private school. There's no fee for that. So you can start at any time of year. We've got some really exciting new destinations for that. And if you are on our YouTube channel, don't miss Jessie's videos. Jessie's one of our teachers who's just started in Fuzhou. That's one of our destinations. We've got about 15, including big cities like Nanjing, Suzhou, Wuhan, all over China, really. So private and state school options. And basically, as a company, what we want to do is just help you get off to the best possible start. And you know, if you go with us, one of the things is that, you know, you might get one of those training days with Anthony in London, and maybe get to meet him also in Shanghai. So thank you for watching. If you've got any questions, do get in touch, and see you next time. Thank you.